Oh, you were never loud, never begging to be seen, yet rooms shifted when you entered. Something in your presence pressed on weak structure. People felt it before they understood it. That subtle tension, that quiet discomfort. You didn't try to provoke it. You didn't need to. You simply existed. And that was enough to expose cracks in others. From early on, you noticed the looks, the pauses, the way conversations bent around you. They called you strange, quiet, intense, distant. Not because those words were true, but because they were convenient. Labels are shields for people who feel exposed. It was easier to name you than to confront what you reflected back to them. You saw more than you said. You listened while others reacted. You watched patterns form while they chased noise. And without realizing it, you became a mirror. Insecurity doesn't like mirrors. Weakness avoids reflection. Imbalance panics when it's revealed. Your silence made people talk too much. Your calm made them restless. Your stillness made them feel unsteady. You weren't cold. You were contained. You weren't empty. You were observing. But to emotional minds, restraint feels like judgment. To unstable systems, control feels like threat. So they projected. They assumed distance meant arrogance. They assumed quiet meant plotting. They assumed depth meant danger. And in a way, they were right, just not in the way they thought. You learned early that fitting in came with a cost, dulling your edge, shrinking your signal, softening your gravity. And something in you refused, not loudly, not rebelliously, it simply refused. So you stood slightly apart, even when surrounded, present, but not absorbed, involved, but not owned. While others chased approval, you studied behavior. While they performed, you measured. You saw how quickly confidence collapsed without validation, how fragile personas were when challenged by silence, how people needed noise to avoid themselves, and you didn't need to announce any of it. Your awareness alone created pressure. This is why they reacted emotionally to you, why small things you did felt amplified, why neutrality was read as hostility, why your absence was noticed more than your effort. You disrupted without touching anything. You questioned without speaking. You unsettled without moving. There was never something wrong with you. There was something unprocessed around you. You were not designed to blend into unstable environments. You were designed to reveal them. And long before you understood your own nature, others felt it. That was the disturbance. That was the signal. That was the beginning. You noticed it early, even if you could not explain it. No matter where you went, the outcome felt familiar. People misunderstood your intentions. They underestimated your ability. They overlooked your effort. When credit was given, it skipped your name. When trust was placed, it was rarely placed in you. You tried to adjust at first. You spoke more clearly. You worked harder. You stayed loyal longer than you should have. Still, the pattern repeated. Authority figures dismissed your ideas or took them without acknowledgement. Peers smiled to your face and doubted you behind your back. Systems promised fairness, but rewarded comfort instead of truth. Each time you were left standing alone, wondering what you missed. You replayed moments in your mind, searching for mistakes. But the truth was not hidden in your actions. It was hidden in perception. You did not match what people expected someone like you to be. You did not perform weakness. You did not depend enough. You did not make yourself small to be acceptable. Betrayal did not arrive loudly. It came quietly. Support faded when you needed it most. Alliances shifted without warning. People you trusted chose safety over honesty. And slowly, you learned that attachment often came with conditions you were never meant to accept. Being excluded changed you. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Illusions fell away. You stopped assuming loyalty would be returned. Disappointment forced clarity. Clarity forced independence. You began to rely on your own judgment because external approval proved unstable. Dismissal sharpened your awareness. When doors closed without explanation, you learned to read subtext. When silence replaced recognition, you learned patience. Isolation removed distraction. Abandonment removed false promises. What remained was raw ability and the responsibility to develop it alone. Rejection followed you, not because you lacked value, but because you disrupted comfort. People prefer reflections that flatter them, not ones that challenge their authority or expose imbalance. You did not echo their beliefs. You did not reinforce their image. You stood slightly out of alignment, and that was enough to make you inconvenient. Over time, you stopped asking to be understood. You stopped chasing inclusion. You realized that being chosen by unstable systems was never the goal. What once felt like loss revealed itself as protection. Every exclusion redirected you away from dependence and toward self-command. This cycle was not punishment, it was conditioning. It stripped away false identities and external anchors. It forced you to stand on your own structure. While others were shaped by approval, you were shaped by resistance. And without realizing it at first, you were being prepared to operate without permission, without applause, and without reliance on fragile systems that could never hold you. People always noticed something in you, even if they could not name it. They felt it in small ways, in fleeting moments, in the weight of your glance. It was not obvious, but it was enough to unsettle. Your presence suggested a capability they could not measure, a strength they could not contain. It made them uncomfortable, even when they tried to appear indifferent. You became a mirror for their insecurities. Envy took strange forms. It came as jokes that cut too close to the truth. It came as advice disguised as care, guiding you toward limits they wished you would accept. Doubt was whispered in subtle tones, designed to make you question your instincts. Fear hid in silence, in polite smiles, in bodies that shifted away from your energy. They tried to control the space around you, to limit your influence without appearing hostile. Subtle distractions appeared at critical moments. Attention was diverted. Conversations steered. Opportunities quietly blocked. The weight of these small actions accumulated, a quiet attempt to cage you within what they could tolerate. You were rarely confronted directly. Instead, resistance arrived in shadows. It came in people questioning your choices before you acted. It came in subtle challenges to your decisions, in ways that forced you to defend yourself unnecessarily. Every attempt to control or redirect your energy was invisible to anyone not paying attention. But you noticed. You always noticed. People tried to keep you predictable. They assumed that if they shaped your environment, shaped their reactions, they could shape you. They assumed repetition and conformity would work where understanding could not. They underestimated the depth of your observation and the patience you cultivated in response. Their attempts were small, careful, almost polite. They masked aggression with civility, envy with laughter, fear with disregard. But the impact was clear to you. It made you cautious. It made you strategic. It sharpened your perception and strengthened your boundaries without your needing to declare it. In their efforts to contain you, they revealed themselves. Every mockery, every subtle manipulation, every forced compromise showed the limits of their vision. It was proof of the potential they feared. They could sense it without fully understanding it, and that gave you quiet leverage over their attempts. You learned to move with awareness, to protect your energy without confrontation, to let their interference pass around you without effect. You realized that the threat you posed was not visible to them, but it was undeniable. Your presence, your focus, your quiet control of your own trajectory became a signal they could not ignore. A reminder of the strength they could not claim. You felt it before anyone else did. The quiet building inside you, a weight that could not be shaken. The world around you grew heavier, not because it changed, but because your perception deepened. Ordinary chatter felt loud. Shallow connections felt hollow. The energy of those who sought only approval or distraction pressed against you, and you began to pull away naturally. Solitude was no longer empty space. It became a lens. It forced you to examine your own mind, your own patterns, your own limits. The pressure did not crush you. It refined you. It removed the noise that had once clouded your judgment. It forced clarity where confusion had lingered. Conversations that spun endlessly without substance felt like erosion on your focus. Attention given to the trivial became unbearable. Emotional investment in those who could not meet your standards faded. You began to conserve energy, to protect it like a rare resource. Isolation was never weakness. It was a narrowing of the field, a reduction of distraction. It was the environment in which your capabilities could sharpen. The world around you, full of voices demanding response, could no longer dictate your movement. The pressure shaped discipline. The silence shaped precision. The distance shaped perspective. You learned to move without expectation, to listen more than you spoke, to watch without interference. Each step alone forced you to rely on your own judgment, your own timing, your own instincts. Without the influence of approval, the mind becomes exact. the senses tuned. There was discomfort in this separation, the absence of constant reassurance, the lack of easy companionship, the solitude of choice, all of it pressed on you. But it also clarified what mattered, what had value, and what you needed to build for yourself. The intensity of the inner pressure became a guide, a hidden teacher that no one else could offer. You discovered strength in the quiet. You discovered awareness in the stillness. The isolation revealed patterns that had gone unnoticed, motivations that had been ignored, and weaknesses you could no longer afford to indulge. It was a process that demanded patience, focus, and the courage to sit with yourself when the world offered no comfort. Over time, the pressure and isolation were no longer burdens. They became instruments. They shaped your vision, sharpened your resolve, and prepared you for movement without reliance on the noise or validation of others. What once felt like absence became presence. What once felt like loss became guidance. And what once felt like loneliness became power. You notice it first in the way people move around you. Where before they ignored or overlooked, now they pause. Eyes linger longer than necessary. Conversations shift subtly, bending toward your presence without anyone consciously directing them. The energy in the room tilts, not because you act, but because you exist differently. Small details become evident. Someone repeats a question they already asked, searching for clarity or reaction. Others speak with caution, their tone measured, as if testing boundaries they never noticed before. It is quiet, almost imperceptible, but you feel it in the shift of air, the hesitation in responses, the subtle weight of attention landing where it once passed you by. Doors open, not through insistence, but through the quiet authority you carry. The same people who dismissed you before now study you in passing, noting patterns, calculating intent, reacting before you even speak. They try to predict you, but prediction becomes impossible because you have grown beyond expectation. Your calm grows heavier. It is not arrogance, not performance, but presence. It presses on weak minds, revealing their impatience, insecurity, or need to control. The very quiet that once made you invisible now makes you unavoidable. Absence begins to matter more than presence. A room feels smaller when you leave because the balance you carry is gone. You watch the change unfold without announcing it. Power slides into your orbit naturally. It is subtle, almost like a current that shifts around your body, carrying influence quietly. There is no need to force recognition. Attention follows instinctively. Influence spreads silently, without drama, without spectacle. People react differently. Whispers and glances replace dismissal and indifference. Someone who once spoke over you now waits for your word. Others hesitate to contradict, unsure of the weight you carry. It is a reordering that happens without conflict, without confrontation. You move, and the world bends around that movement. This is not sudden. It is the accumulation of unseen work, of discipline, observation, patience, and restraint. It is the result of presence cultivated in silence, awareness sharpened by solitude, and boundaries enforced without apology. You did not chase attention. It sought you, drawn to the frequency you now emit. You realize that power has a way of positioning itself around those who do not announce it. The shift is complete when you feel the world notice your absence more than it noticed your presence before. The room, the conversation, the energy, all respond differently, and you are no longer part of their expectation. You stop seeking approval the way you once did. The need for recognition fades because you realize it never held power over you. Every compliment, every nod, every reassurance becomes unnecessary. Your focus turns inward, to your own standards, your own understanding, your own path. Validation from others is no longer currency. It never was. Your movement becomes deliberate. You act without announcing it. Choices are made quietly, without explanation, without justification. People notice results, but they do not witness the effort, the strategy, the thought behind them. Your steps are measured, precise, unseen, and unstoppable because they no longer depend on reaction. You begin to value depth over breadth. Shallow interactions, small talk, and distraction lose their weight. You prioritize what fuels growth and clarity. Silence becomes an ally. Solitude, a space to sharpen vision. You no longer stretch to connect with everyone. Your energy is reserved for what aligns with purpose, for what challenges, for what strengthens. The compulsion to defend yourself disappears. You stop correcting misunderstandings. You stop arguing against assumptions. Others interpret, misjudge, or doubt, and it no longer matters. Their perception does not define your path. Their approval cannot change your direction. Control returns where it belongs, inside you, rooted in your awareness and your choices. Belonging loses its hold. The pull to fit in, to match expectations, to be understood, softens. You measure yourself against your own benchmarks, not the norms set by fragile systems or insecure minds. Alignment with yourself becomes the only standard. Every action, every decision, every step is anchored in self-loyalty. You cultivate patience with observation. You watch without interference. You study without commentary. The world moves, reacts, shifts, and you remain grounded, present, unmoved by the chaos of judgment or distraction. Influence now comes through quiet consistency rather than performance. Presence carries weight without proclamation. Freedom grows in the absence of external pressure, without the need to prove, defend, or explain. Energy concentrates, focus sharpens, and clarity expands. Movement flows naturally in the direction that serves growth, mastery, and integrity. You become an unseen force, present in effect, absent in spectacle. Not loud, not recognized, not celebrated, but real. It is the alignment of mind, body, and intent. The internal order reflects outward consequence. What once required audience or acknowledgement now thrives in secrecy, precision, and intention. You operate fully in your own authority, guided by your own standards, and untouched by the noise that once demanded attention. Wealth, recognition, status, these were never the measure of your power. They were reflections, echoes of something already present, not the source. You carried the core long before the world took notice, long before anyone attempted to define you. Your journey was never about catching up. It was about uncovering what was always within. Every setback, every dismissal, every moment of silence or isolation was a layer being stripped away, revealing the strength you were born with. Nothing you gained added to your essence. It only made it visible to others who had ignored it. People who overlooked you now study you. Their curiosity, their calculation, their quiet attempts to understand are evidence of your presence, not their judgment. They see the effect of your focus, the gravity of your decisions, and the control you exercise over yourself. They realize, even if subconsciously, that they underestimated what they could not measure. They are markers of authority. The same silence that once made others uneasy now signals dominance. Absence, presence, observation. It was never conditional. It was always inherent, waiting for clarity to emerge, waiting for the world to catch up. What others call success, achievement, or fortune is only the surface effect of internal order. Power resides inside, not in applause or approval. This awareness changes everything. You no longer move with hesitation or doubt. Every action, every decision, every withdrawal or engagement is anchored in the knowledge that your position was never earned. Your authority exists independently of anyone else's perception. You remember who you were before the world tried to define you, before you sought acceptance, before distraction clouded your vision. That version of yourself is the one you reclaim now. Everything external simply mirrors what was already true. A mind capable of influence, a presence that commands, a vision that moves without force. This is not growth. It is recollection. It is the restoration of an original state. The crown was never a gift to earn, never a prize to take, never a role to play. It was always inherent, waiting for recognition, waiting for alignment.